actual.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
If you're here,
Thank you, buddy.
But you're the only one.
All right, we can call the Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. Do you have invocation? On there.
Councilor Justin Green.
Counselor Justin Green, please.
I'm standing up, I will.
Okay, perfect.
Bow your heads, please. Lord God, we just give you glory and honor for this day. We just praise you for your presence. We thank you for your wisdom. It comes from you. We ask that you would just bless each and every one here. Lord God, give us utterance when we need it and give us knowledge where it's needed. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Roll call?
Pickle?
Here.
Green?
Here.
Ford?
Here?
Parks?
Here.
Wimpy?
Here. All right, please stand and join Counselor Ford for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag to...
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's your flag. Thank you, ma'am. Item 5A is presentation, discussion, and possible direction regarding the revenues, expenditures, and budgets of the City of Broken Arrow Municipal Authority, and the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority. The proposed fiscal year 2026 budgets and financial plans for the general fund, Broken Arrow Municipal Authority, Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority, and other funds for the City of Broken Arrow. Michael Spurgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, good afternoon, and welcome to our annual budget workshop. It is very much appreciated that council members that have given the time today to do the annual work session. I also want to welcome and acknowledge all the department directors and senior staff members that are here today, and I want to publicly express my gratitude for all their hard work in putting the annual budget together. Obviously, council knows this. One of the most important responsibilities the governing body has is the annual budget. I mean, it is the blueprint. It is the approved document that actually all the directors work off of each and every year. So, as we have done in many years in the past, purpose tonight is to have a higher level of review of what's being proposed for fiscal year 2026, which I'll go through here in a minute. But the way we've set this up is, once again, as we've have in the past, is we have a PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to discuss the budget and some aspects of the budget, and there will be two directors that, as we do every year, that will give a presentation more specifically about their proposal for the coming year. And so, with your permission, Mayor, I'd like to start the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So, what we have today, let's go back a little bit towards the beginning here to where what's planned for this evening, which is the budget workshop that talks about what we'll be discussing. We've got to go back towards the beginning. Okay, one more slide. There we go. So what we're going to go over today is the highlights from the budget message. I'm going to touch on the executive summary, the budget overview. At that time, then Chief Moore will give a presentation, and then the BAM operations of Capitol. Then, as we always, council has always said, when it comes to loans, the street maintenance programs, they want to see exactly what's being planned for the year, because as we go through the year and approve it to be consistent with what the council approved during the budget. And then actually we'll have a presentation from Tim Robbins. Then we'll talk about the general obligation bond projects. Then Mr. Wilson will give a presentation on the street maintenance. We'll talk about the manual fees, questions, and follow-up. And as always, the purpose of the work session is to go everything, and then on June 2nd, we will have the actual public hearing where there'll be a mini version of today's PowerPoint presentation, and then the mayor will ask for comments from the public if there are about the budget. And if everything goes according to schedule after that, then there would be adoption at the second meeting in June. So, next slide, please. So the budget executive summary is in section 1. It's pages 1 through 24. And the purpose of the executive summary is to give the council and the public that review the budget really two things. Number one is an overview of what's being proposed. And obviously, you can't include every single priority, but the top priorities in the 6 areas that we focus on, the top priorities are listed in those specific 6 areas. And if you read the 24 pages, first 24, which I know the council members do, it will give you a real good snapshot of what's being planned for the upcoming fiscal year.
Can I just touch on the executive summary real quick? I do love where on page 4, where it says we are concerned about customers understanding the cost of operations and the rate we charge our customers for services, personnel and department operational expenses, wages, benefits, utilities. Anyway, and that you're gonna do a little educational thing, I think that's great, because people don't know what they don't know. And so if they don't know how expensive things are and what it costs us just to run the city, I could see where they could ask, questions on water bills and
And they
that type of
do.
thing. And they do, yeah. So I appreciate that,
Yes.
it being in there.
Well, one of our goals is for people not to call it the water bill, but to call it the utility bill, because it has more than just water. Water is just one portion of the many different services that are a part of BAMA. So actually, that's an ongoing educational with our production team. So, okay. So next slide is budget consideration. Is we always start with the why and how do we come up with the budget, and really that why consists of 2 things. Number one is meets the directive that the council members have for providing a great service, and secondly is ensures that we have revenues not for today, but also 2 other things. One, for unexpected circumstances that come up through the year, and also to make sure that we have, I've always said the cities are not destinations, they're perpetual. And so while we have, I would say, healthy fund balances, which is required by the council, is that we got to make sure that we have funds for future budgets. And when we go through here, you will actually see that's what we've done. So as we know, the next slide, please, is that we run on a July 1st through June 30th budget cycle. And the next slide is the municipal budget serves as a blueprint for the following purposes: to review and confirm the priorities of local government. This council member's opportunity to talk about what's being considered in the executive summary in terms of priorities or any other aspect of the operation, determine our service levels based on those priorities and sustainable resources that are available, thoroughly plan our program of work and implementation within operations over the fiscal year. So in the executive summary, I ask most of the directors to actually include a snapshot of what they plan for the upcoming year, because that throughout the year, as we make decisions, especially when they're policy decisions, council can actually go back and match up what was in the budget message when those actions are taken. For example, the chief police has been working on reestablishing the SRO program, and that's something was specifically listed in the executive summary because that was something the council said we'd like to do. So, next slide, please. The city's vision, mission, and opportunities that will be accomplished. There are 6 areas that we focus on: public safety services and community well-being, economic development focusing on growth and prosperity, innovative municipal government operations, fiscal sustainability and strategic public investments, transformational initiatives that help maintain a thriving and healthy community, and transparency in communications. Those are the 6 things that we try to build our budget around. Each director has some part of somewhere within those 6 priorities. The budget book, which obviously this is an incredible document, and I appreciate Finance's efforts to put this together. It has the executive summary from my office, which is a collaboration of myself, Kenny, and Norm primarily. Proposed revenues and expenditures for each fund, the proposed budgets for each department, and as we've grown, we've increased the number of special funds that we have in order to make sure that we're in compliance with the law about how we can spend those dollars. Street maintenance plan, the proposed 2026 general obligation bond sale, the OWRB loan program, the manual fees, which included in that is a utility rate study. So when we go to do the budget, we actually we sit down early in the year with finance, and we look at the estimate of revenues, and we do that always on a conservative basis. We want to ensure that all the funds balance, and included in there are contingencies for unexpected circumstances. And council has basically said there's policies that we have about how much reserve we want to have. And if you go through the budget, as it lists all the different funds, it'll tell you what's going to be spent. And at the bottom, it'll tell you what the anticipated fund balance will be for each one of those. So it's very clear that anybody that read this document will be able to know exactly what's being proposed and what we're anticipating is a fund balance on June 30th of 2026. So at this time, I'm gonna make a couple of more comments, and I'm gonna ask Tom Cook to make some comments about the actual budget itself. So, the basis for the budget recommendation, obviously, the council's number one priority: great services to our community, and I think it's an exciting time to be talking about the budget right now. When you think of all that's been announced this week, the hard work that has happened, number one, to have that bill passed at the Senate, and the opportunity that NSU can approach the regents to begin the process of being able to offer four-year classes was a heavy lift by a lot of people in this room and outside of this room. Secondly, the culmination of all the hard work of people in this room and our citizens in the private sector to be ranked as the number one city in Oklahoma at this snapshot in time, and then the 12th in the country, says a lot about the quality of the efforts that we make to, number one, is provide great services. Obviously, as a fast-growing community, a large portion of our budget is capital improvements. We spend a lot of time actually doing bond projects, OWRB projects, pay-as-you-go projects, because those things are what actually maintaining infrastructure has a tremendous impact on the quality of life for the citizens within our community. And obviously, the bottom one is everything we do really is about getting things done and maintaining a great quality of life here in Broken Arrow. So I updated this slide because there's been a change in Tulsa County for the sales tax breakdown. Sales tax for Broken Arrow in Tulsa County is 8.417, effective July 1st, based on the voters' decision back in February regarding that judgment in Wagner County. Theirs will go to 9.6. So 9.6 will be the new tax rate if you purchase something within Wagner County. So obviously, not everything is roses and unicorns when it comes to putting our budget together. Number one, sales tax, and there's a slide on the next page that I'll get to in just a second, is trending to be somewhat flat. Okay, that's not to be expected. Every other community in the area is experiencing the exact same thing. Inflation, the cost of goods and services. Since the COVID, for example, road construction projects are up approximately 60 to 70%. And we are truly blessed that we got all of our buildings from the 2018 bond package done before the COVID. Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult to be able to complete those projects. We also continue to have some supply chain availability, and that's why a lot of times we have to forward fund some of our vehicles and equipment to be able to get the best price. And so council's been very flexible. And then when it comes in with the bond especially, we'll put that money back in the appropriate fund. And once again, I bring this all out all the time, is this the current overdependence on sales tax. So the next slide, what I wanted to show you is there's probably never been a more ebb and flow of sales tax per month in my tenure here. And as you can see, there's actually been a couple of months that we were below, and a number of the months we were just above actually being in the positive. I mean, we're going to end the year basically with having what I'd say in good shape. But I do have concern. That's why for sales tax this year, we're only projecting about a 1.5% increase in sales tax. Now, we've seen some growth in other revenue sources, such as franchise fees, number one, building permit fees, but that's based on the economy. So fortunately, we continue to budget in a very conservative basis. So with that, Tom, why don't you share some about the proposed budget?
Okay. If we hadn't gone to this slide, I was gonna have a quick quiz. And see if anybody could see what the total budget was. So, the city of Broken Arrow, and that's all funds, our proposed budget is $455,957,612. That's a 3.44% decrease from the current FY25 budget, which was $472,198,240. And the breakdown, operationally, our budget is $181 million and change, which is a 9.58% increase over last year, which was $165.4 million. Capital outlay will be $232.5 million, which, and this is where the differential, the decrease really comes from, is a 12.95% decrease over last year's $267.1 million. And while that is a decrease, it's really honestly a good thing, because it just shows that some of the built-up OWRB funds and 2018 GO bond funds, those projects are moving forward and they are being spent. So although it is lower, it's not necessarily a negative. And then for debt service, $42.1 million, which is a 6% increase over last year's $39 million.
Tom talked about debt service. What does that consist of?
So the debt service is both on our general obligation bonds, which is what property tax pays for, and so, and which is, I don't recall that number off the top of my head, about $20 million in a round number. And then the other portion of debt service is our loans from the Oklahoma Water Resource Board. And so those are the annual payments against principal and interest that we have to make. So for FY26, our proposed workforce will be a total of 1,020 authorized positions. 909 would be full-time and 111 part-time and seasonal. So for the general fund, which the general fund is the statutory fund that is responsible essentially for everything except for those monies that are by law or council action designated to be spent elsewhere. So it would be the city's primary operating fund, although we of course now have BAMA, so all our utility functions are there. The people voted, and we have public safety sales tax funds, so police and fire are separated out from there. And so the general fund is left with the administration, parks, streets, IT, I saw Scott somewhere earlier, community development, finance, and so HR, sorry Kelly. So those are the types of expenditures that are left in the general fund, general government, things that are related to the council. So total budget for the general fund, including expenditures, transfers out, and our projected ending fund balance is $153,662,215. In comparison, fiscal year 25's general fund budget of those things was $151,142,668, and that's an overall increase of about 1.7%. So general fund revenues, total revenues for projected for fiscal year 2026, which it does not include transfers, is $98,642,000, and the FY26 revenue sources combined are 5.44% greater than last year's 25 budget. As Mr. Spurgeon already said, sales tax is projected at 1.5%, but things like building permits, ambulance revenue, even jail fines, they are projected at a higher rate. So as sales tax is 1.5% over estimated actuals, and then the current data along with historical is what we analyze to come up with the other revenue projections.
Tom, just approximately how much does a half a cent in sales tax generate?
A half a cent in sales tax generates between 10 and 11 million dollars.
Thank you.
So general fund expenditures for personnel, it's 21.9 million. Other services and charges is 8.5 million, and materials and supplies is 2 million, for total operating expenditures of 32 million. And transfers out from the general fund, which is actually its largest expenditures, transfer out to BAMA, which is statutory because of our sales tax that is dedicated to BAMA, 21.4 million. We fund Beta both from BAMA and the general fund at $600,000 per fund. The police transfer, which as a reminder is 36.7% of all general fund operating revenues, is $36,201,643, and fire, which is 30.7% transfer, is $30,283,118. So the total expenditures for the general fund, including transfers, is $120,978,215. Within your book, in section 2, the general fund departments as listed, which if anybody would have any questions, we can flip to those pages within that section and take a look at them. Or if any department head had a specific they wanted to point out.
Okay.
So, me or you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So new for us in this projected fiscal year is our vehicle replacement fund. Council last year in the budget process created the vehicle replacement fee portion of our utility bills. And so this will be our first year to actually have expenditures within that fund. So revenues are estimated at 2.2 million, and these funds by council action are limited in use for the citywide vehicle purchase program. And that allocation of those funds, police is 1.6 million. BAMA-related divisions and departments is just under 700,000. General government is 228,000. Parks, 120,000. Fire, 80,000, and street, 56,000, for a total of $2.82 million. Sales tax capital improvement, the half cent that Mr. Spurgeon referenced a minute ago, that is what the amount of sales tax that is dedicated to our sales tax capital improvement fund. That was a vote of the citizens in the late 70s, I believe. And so these are our proposed expenditures for that fund. So it is the 0.5% of the 3.55 total city sales tax. Our revenues are estimated at $10.9 million, and these funds are used primarily as pay-as-you-go capital. And that total capital expenditures within this year's proposed budget is $22.5 million. And within your book in section 4, pages 11 through 14 have an extensive list of what those expenditures are going to be.
Can we stop and talk about those a little bit, Tom?
You bet we can.
So I wanted to point out to the council on page 12, under community development. So I'm asking for, I didn't include this in my executive summary yet because I wanted to talk about it during the budget. And if council's in agreement, then I'm going to amend my executive summary. And what I'm referring to is under community development on page 12, we included $150,000 to do a downtown master plan initiative. Rose District is now well over a decade old. And as many of you know, it took a while to come up with the concept of the Rose District. And as I've mentioned to you individually and in a few comments at meetings, I think it's time, starting next year, to actually put together a committee, the format we can talk about late this summer, early fall, made up of citizens and businesses and interested parties to come together to be led by a consultant, as recommended by community development, to go in and to look at the successes we've had, to look at the downtown overlay and the other zoning specifically to see if there's what has worked since we did the DROD, and see if there needs to be any changes in that DROD or the zoning down there, and to also look at the other opportunities that there still remain in the downtown area, specifically from Kenosha all the way to Washington, and have that committee come up with recommendations. And so to do that, we anticipate the consulting services to be about $150,000. So I didn't want to actually go forward because if council's in agreement, as soon as the budget is approved, they will start the process of soliciting proposals for a consultant, bring someone to council probably later this summer because there's going to be some preliminaries we're going to have to do to get them up to speed on what's been going on in the Rose District, look at our codes, meet with staff, individual meetings with council members to make sure they understand what the expectation is. And then concurrently, council will select a group of folks. And what I was thinking was with the bond package, as soon as council adopts the ordinance and the calling for the election, as soon as we go into public education phase, then the committee would start to meet. Because that way, really a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of which projects we pick, the public meetings, all of that in terms of what has been selected is over. And then actually that committee could meet, start that process, which I think could take about a year.
So will they also decide like what to do with the grain elevator, silo, those kind of things?
They will do whatever council directs. And so if that's one of the recommendations, because you look at this, if there will be funds presented to the council on June 18th, talking about how much money we believe needs to be put in there based on the proposal that council saw earlier this year. And so council's going to drive what you want the committee to do. So yes, Mayor, the answer is yes.
Okay.
If you want them to come up with suggestions on what to do with that, that would be a part of that process.
And there'll be a couple of counselors on that
Yes.
committee as well.
I'm right now just preliminary. I'm thinking that 2 council members, then there would be someone from the chamber, the EDC, the school district. You may want to consider having someone from all of the user groups that are in the downtown, which would be 4 or 5, and then the council members pick at least 1 or 2 persons, individuals, in addition, for a total of around 20 folks.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One was a comment that just recently I've been asked by several people if we're going to upgrade that or update that downtown master plan. Just no problems. They just wanted to know if there was any changes need to be for that exact reason. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I'll bring up another topic on it, is that downtown master plan doesn't go to 91st Street. So is there some way that we can include that in some type of future master plan, or do you want to wait for that to happen?
What I'd like to do is this summer, if council's good to go with this, it's in the budget, I update my executive summary, and then we have a discussion probably early August where we talk about it, because Rocky specifically needs to hear what the direction council has, so that when we bring the consultant in, that consultant is going to go through all our codes. We'll have a list of the priorities of the council, individual meetings or two-to-ones with that consultant about what I'd like to see, and then we come back and we make an announcement that we're going to pursue this. Here's what we're going after. Here's the area, especially if we're going to be making a transition. All of that area needs to be looked at.
Okay. Yeah, I really think that needs to be, even if it's a smaller area, not as large as the downtown area, but at least the roadway up through there,
Okay.
some way we could add that to it.
Yeah, certainly. So I really wanted to point this out. I mean, I've been mentioning it off and on, but obviously it's a new initiative, and I think it's extremely important considering the transition that we're looking at making. And the chamber, for example, is going to be moving at some point later this year, and the school district's going back into that building. I've identified approximately 15 different properties that have the potential for development in the downtown area that right now, through either redevelopment or development, could enhance the growth and prosperity that exists. At some point, I would like to share that with the consultant to look at some of those. Maybe we could acquire now in order to basically, we have influence on trying to do economic development. And so there's a number of properties down there that either they've reached their useful life and they could be redeveloped, or they haven't developed yet, and a part of that needs to be look at this overall strategy. Okay. Then I'll update the executive summary, and that'll be a part of what's in your proposal for the FY 2026. So that's the main thing I wanted to point out. Most of the other items are just requests from the directors for specific items that they need, which were really considered pay-as-you-go, smaller type projects and initiatives. So I did want to point that out, though. Okay, Tom Grin?
Well, I would like to follow
Yeah.
up. We had just gone through the vehicle replacement fund, and even though we have that specific purpose funding, it is not enough to cover our needs for vehicles and equipment. So as you go through STCI, you will still see that there are vehicles and equipment in there, and both Bama when you get to Bama. Street sales tax fund. So the street sales tax fund, as you'll recall, was voted on by the citizens when we repurposed the original vision tax. It has an estimated revenue each year of about $5.4 million. New projects for the upcoming fiscal year under mill and overlay would total $3.76 million, about $800,000 in miscellaneous projects and signal projects, for a total of $5,454,000. There is more budgeted within that fund, but specifically those are the new projects, and the others are primarily carryovers, which Tim and Zach will go through shortly when they make their presentation. The police sales tax fund, another dedicated portion of sales tax that was part of the revisioning of Tulsa County's vision. Its total revenues are $40,919,079, of which 3.2 comes from the dedicated sales tax. It has other revenues of approximately $512,000. The transfer from general fund, which we saw when we were looking at general fund, is 36.2, and then it also receives a transfer from the E911 fund to help cover costs of communication. Total revenues $40.9 million. For their expenditures, personnel services are obviously the largest expenditure, $32.6 million. Professional services, $473,000. Property services, $1.8 million. Other services, $1.5. Materials and supplies, $2.3. And then capital outlay of $1.6 within the public sales tax fund. A total of $40,355,000. Under police department operations, they currently have 156 sworn positions, but we had authorization to overhire, so they actually have 158 field. normal attrition for the police department is about 5 to 7 officers per year. There's several factors related to the state pension, and they anticipate that they will have an increased attrition rate as a result of that. And there was a change in the state law that required an additional 1% pension contribution by both the individual officer and the city. And for the city's portion of that, annually, the approximate cost is about $190,000. For police capital, within the police sales tax fund, which can be found in section 4 on page 43, the 1.5855 that I mentioned a moment ago. Within the vehicle replacement fund, there's a detailed list that totals 1.646 for total capital expenditures of $3,200,000. The fire sales tax fund, which receives the same portion of the dedicated sales tax of $3.2 million. They have other revenues, and within that other revenues is the anticipated receipts from the SAFER grant that was awarded earlier this year. And then their transfer from the general fund is $30.2 million. Total revenues almost $34.5 million. Expenditures for personnel, $29.2 million. Professional services, $668,000. Property services, $548,000. Other services of $700,000. And their materials and supplies is $1.4 million for total expenses of $32,558,000. All of their capital is in the STCI, page 13 of section 4, or in the vehicle replacement fund found on section 4, page 9. And at this time, Chief Moore would have
Before we do, if I can, if I could ask council to turn to section 4, page 36. I want to share something with the governing body. We're going to look at page 36 for police, and then we're going to look at page 44 for the fire. So I've never experienced this before until I got to Broken Arrow. So when the voters in November of 2015 approved appropriating the vision tax to be a third essentially for streets, police, and fire, that ordinance called for the creation of separate funds for all three of those. In my previous career, the police was a part of the general fund. Okay, so when the voters said that, they dedicated with the approval that the police department gets 36 and some change, and the fire department gets 30 and some change, for a total of just under 68%. So all general fund revenues that come in, basically 68% of those are put into, accordingly, 36 or 30% get put into these two funds, okay? So on page 36 for the police department, it's projecting that the ending year fund balance is $33 million, almost $34 million, okay? The challenge with that is, it looks like this is where we pay for the police department. And the challenge is this is why I so fiercely guard what's in that fund, is because at some point with the cost of providing that service, the cost of the service is going to exceed what we take in, and to balance the budget, we're going to have to start drawing down on that fund balance. And the same thing goes on page 44 for the fire department, with their ending funding balance is like $17 million. So from the labor's perspective, they see that number and they think that the city could easily afford giving whatever increases they ask for. And in essence, you can, but what that's going to do, it's eventually going to put the city in, if you could, but it's going to put the city into a deficit situation, which means you're going to have to increase that contribution from 68% to some other percent in order to pay for that. And so I point this out because some folks look at that and think that we have the ability to pay. Well, the answer to that question, if you look at it just myopically, is yes, we do. But if you look at the long-term benefit or long-term cost of providing any department, at some point, and I think it's going to be in the early 2030s, both the police and fire, or their operational expenses are going to exceed what we take in. And that's why I'm always talking about sales tax and other revenues, because at that point, those numbers will start to go down. And so I bring that up mainly just as I try to do that every year, especially with the Chief Moore and also with the new chief, to talking about why I fiercely guard those, because, you know, giving cost of living increases and other benefits, doing capital improvements out of these funds, it never gets put back in there. So, I mean, it's my philosophy. I know we went through this 2 or 3 years in a row about why we don't increase the revenue projections. I'm all about increasing revenue projections if it's about increasing revenue projections, not to be able to justify why we're giving somebody an increase. So I just want to point that out to the council members.
Just a little thing, that like on the emergency management services, it shows nothing for 24, 25, and then it doesn't start till 26 as
So-
far as budgeted.
Emergency management has always been within the police department, but it did not set itself aside as a separate division. And so it was requested and is being so going forward. So that is the expenditures that were always within the fund, but now are segregated out separately.
So they won't come out of the sales tax fund, they'll come out of general fund.
No, well, they will come from the revenues received within the public safety sales tax police fund, which is where they have always been expended from. They were just not segregated within that fund. They were just within part of the police division, the 3001 division, but there was the request made to segregate those costs out so that there was a little autonomy.
Yeah, they were part of, now if you go to page 39 will actually show you is going forward, you'll have a separate page for emergency management. Before they were a part of the overall police department budget.
And was just like a line item in that?
Yes.
Yes.
The person, Jamie's salary was in personnel costs. The cost to run the operations were a part of the police department budget. And, you know, it makes better sense to actually break it all out to show what that cost is. Chief, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the fire department's budget. First, I would just say thank you for the continuous support, as always, for public safety, both on the police chief and my behalf. We knew we were a great city, and now the rest of the country does too. And public safety feels like your prioritization of the police and fire department really helped push us past that. That and obviously Jennifer Rush's efforts.
Absolutely.
We've got just a few slides. I'm taking it kind of from everything down, and then I'll kind of work down into the granular. But all of the dollars that are expected to be expended on the fire department, I kind of group here into this pie chart. This is all of our capital purchases. That's everything from ambulances, and then our personnel expenses, and then that 9% is what I call other, and I'll kind of break those down a little bit as we go through all of it. But $35,304,000 and change is what is expected to be broken down this year for the fire department. I'll start with the capital budget, and again, that's section 4, page 13. That's Fund 330 that Tom was just talking about, and that is where all of our capital items for the fire department are included in that. And a capital item is, you know, anything over $5,000 that's expected to last at least a year. That's a capital purchase. So paper clips and Band-Aids aren't capital, but computers and radios and ambulances are a capital purchase. And there's a, like I said, on page 13 of section 4 is everything, but I've put up here a couple highlights that I would draw to your attention. Again, on the previous slide, this makes up 8% of all of the dollars coming to the fire department this year are making up this $2,745,000. This year, we're doing the second half of radios. Our walkie-talkies, it's unfortunate that everything we have is technology-based and expendable kind of thing and wears out over time. So we have done what we try to consider, what's the right word? Amateurizing that over a long period of time as much as possible. So we bought half of our walkie-talkie radios in this fiscal year. We're going to buy the second half of them next year, and that's why it says the second half. The radios are just under $6,000 each for the type of radios that we use to make sure they have redundancy built in, and we can also use them in a fire or an explosive type environment. Also this year, our cardiac monitors is what monitors is up there. That's what we use for defibrillating people and monitoring everyone's heart rhythm. Our vendor came to us last year and said, hey, we're sunsetting the model you have. And so rather than continuing to buy the models last year and upgrade them, every year we have monitors on a rotating schedule, just like computers and radios and bunker gear. But last year we chose not to buy any. And then this year we're going to try to buy half of the monitors to replace what's on the ambulances. And then next year we'll replace what's on the fire trucks. So we're breaking up this $1.3 million purchase over 2 fiscal years here to replace every cardiac monitor that's on the fire trucks and ambulances. And we'll do the ambulances first. That'll give us some time also for everybody to get trained on them. Then we'll do the ones on the fire trucks next year.
What's a Lucas device?
A Lucas device is the device that does CPR automatically on somebody. So rather than having a firefighter doing compressions in the back of an ambulance from Forest Ridge to St. Francis Hospital, we put a Lucas device on our citizens. And it's a couple things. It saves firefighters. And after doing CPR for about a minute, most everybody in here is fatigued. And so it gives the perfect compression every single time, and it'll do it perfect every single time, and we can really monitor it closely, and we know it's done right, and no one gets too tired. So every one of our ambulances has a Lucas device, and we are getting ready to start rotating. The very first ones we've got are now approaching their end of life, and so this is actually replacing the first Lucas devices that we put on our trucks 7 or 8 years ago.
I do have one more question before
Sure.
you move on. Under radios, you talk about the handhelds. Do you guys actually have actual radios mounted in the trucks as well?
Yes,
Or
sir.
Okay.
Every fire truck and every ambulance has a radio in it that we use when we're communicating en route. But then once we get off the truck,
Right.
every firefighter has their own individual radio. A million years ago, when I started, just the captain carried one, but due to safety purposes now, everybody carries a radio to help make sure if they get lost or disoriented. You've seen the movies and stuff, they can call a mayday and say, hey, I'm trapped, I'm down. So every one of our firefighters carries a radio.
So the truck radios aren't needing to be replaced currently, just the handhelds?
We replace those generally when we buy new trucks and apparatus.
Copy that.
Sometimes they'll carry over, but a lot of times when we get a new truck and apparatus, we'll get a new radio at that time. Yes, sir. PPE stands for personal protective equipment. That is the protective ensemble, the bunker gear, it may be called, that you saw us wearing the pants in the parade. That gear protects our firefighters, and it is quite expensive. And so we've actually spread that cost over 10 years, because to outfit the entire department would be $1.6 million. And so it has a 10-year lifespan. And so we put in enough money to just keep rotating that out every 10 years. We're trying to make sure we've got somebody in new gear. And so that's just sort of our regular and reoccurring expense of bunker gear. The last thing there that I'll just sort of draw to your attention, the city's done a fantastic job. Thank you to the ARPA money and the CARES money that we have pushed and got our ambulances where they need to be. We were struggling there for a while, replacing motors and some other stuff. But the remount project is where we're taking the box off of a 5 to 10-year-old chassis and putting it onto a new chassis. The boxes are good for 20 years. They got a 20-year warranty on them, and that process allows us to save a little bit of money. A brand new ambulance is about $350,000. doing a remount. I've got 2 remounts scheduled with that $550,000. So if we move the box over to a new chassis and do a remount, it saves us a little bit of money. But we're in really good shape on our ambulances. And now that the rookies came out yesterday, we're actually getting ready to just, have our 9th ambulance on the streets. I just read an email from Chief Lawson saying make it happen Sunday. So we've got enough ambulances and now personnel that we're going to be able to deliver a little more service to our citizens. And the ambulances are 80% of what we do is EMS, so that will be a common theme for the rest of the presentation. Any other questions that jump out at you over page 13 there?
Are these prices that you're looking at, are they prices that probably when we get ready to purchase it, or do you have any way, or have you added anything for unseen price increases or anything?
We go off of the state contract a lot to help us know what to price. Some of these things we've actually spoken with specific vendors and so forth, like the radios. And since we bought half of the radios this year, we kind of can anticipate what the radios are going to be next year. But for the most part, we just get estimates through our IT department, or depending on the type of, Scott does a good job of letting us know what the computers are going to cost and those types of things.
Totally random, but who gets the rifles?
That's what I was wondering too. It's like,
So
rifles.
we've got several. I get one, Chief Lawson, and no, just kidding. Several of our folks are deputy fire marshals or fire marshals. They are law enforcement trained personnel and have been through all the law enforcement classes, have the arrest capabilities. They could pull you over for speeding or other things just as a law enforcement officer. And they, the police department has upgraded their rifles, and we need to follow suit. And so this year we have the rifles in the budget for them to purchase as well.
Sorry, people may ask. I
Yeah,
just thought-
it's for our law enforcement officers that investigate suspicious fires.
One more quick question.
Yeah.
Under your PP&E, I saw an article on the news about new PP&E that's specifically for female firefighters. Do we have that? Are we getting that?
All of our gear is custom fit.
Okay.
So we bring the vendor in, they measure the person, and we design it. We don't just buy off the shelf large. We have each person measured, and it's not exactly one size fits all. It is, there are some companies that are selling specifically designed, but our gear we do have custom made to the individual.
Good. Make sure our folks are taken care of.
Yeah.
Chief, talk a little bit about the fire prevention and the fire inspectors and the plan review, and just how busy your folks are right now in that division, because there's a lot happening based on development. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I appreciate that. I didn't know I'd talk about Jennifer Rush quite as much as I'm going to, but a lot of great economic development happening in the city, and there's not a building built in the city without plans for that, whether it's the amphitheater or it's great exciting thing happening on the north or south end of town. Those plans hit our desk, and I've got the deputy fire marshals. There are 4 of them now. We've got a 5th one that's in training, but one's expected to retire, so we've kind of front-loaded that training. And they spend a great deal of time actually reading plan reviews. And it is, in the recent years, we've increased the personnel in that division just to be able to handle and try to keep up with the growth of the community. So it's a fantastic thing, but it is more than a full-time job, I would say. And we've got 2 or 3 people that are around the clock training and learning, and the code is ever changing. And so it's a process to find a way to yes with all of our developers, to try to work with them to find a way within the plans and the codes to keep our citizens safe while they're in these occupancies, but also to keep the developers happy that they want to keep coming here and building, because we're trying to make the process, working with Rocky's team, as smooth as we possibly can.
Yeah. Any concerns or issues with your team? I mean, just based on what you're seeing, I mean, anything council needs to be aware of, changing codes, or anything you need to be able to do your job better?
No, we're in a great spot. Don't be surprised if I do come back in the next year or two saying, it'd be nice if we could have another person in the prevention division, because as we're growing, it's growing. And not only do they have to inspect every plan, but the responsibility then is, once the building is built, they've got to go out and make sure that nobody's blocking the exits, for instance, and making sure that all the pathways are clear. So That is largely complaint-driven, but there are a few things, like when we notice we've had a few fires in restaurants, we made a concerted effort to go inspect every restaurant in town, which causes some, hubbub.
Yep.
It causes some concern. But so, and that's in addition to their responsibilities to also do public education. They're out at Camp Bandage, they're in the schools, they're doing all of that to try to, if I had 100 of them, it wouldn't be enough, because their job is to keep citizens from getting injured and those types of things. A fire prevented is way better than a fire extinguished. And their efforts are largely in that realm, trying to keep accidents, injuries, and fires from happening.
I'm glad to hear that you have 5, because I know most of my career you had 2. And and we were growing like crazy, and they were run ragged, so that's good. So hopefully.
The deputy chief of fire prevention, the fire marshal, and then I have one on each shift, and then the most recent we added was a day person. They're there Monday through Friday, and that is, they have to be on duty for those after-hour fires, so we need them there 24 hours a day, but adding the additional one to a 40-hour work week, just exponentially, we can get a lot more done, because that's when business is happening. Yes, sir. Thank you. This next slide is our operational budget, and the operational budget excludes those purchases of stuff, not the capital. This is what we're running the fire department on, and as if you see, our most valuable asset are our people, and they also make up 90% of our budget. So out of that $32 million, we're running the rest of the department outside of people on about $3.3 million. That $3.3 million includes fuel, the trucks, repairs in the fire stations. We keep Ryan's team busy with repairing fire trucks and fire stations, but also professional services. That would include like every promotional exam we do. We have an outside company that comes in and helps us administer that. Professional services also include the contract we have with First Responder Support Services that helps our firefighters with the mental health, and they can go and get counseling services with them. But there's a ton of supplies and other things that make up that 10%. I would say the 90% that make up our personnel salaries and budgets and salaries and benefits, that's 187 sworn firefighters. That includes myself and Chief Stewart and everybody all the way down to the front line. There's only 16 of us that aren't on the front line, so that makes 57 as of yesterday's graduation. That allows us to get to 57 firefighters per shift, and that is absolutely phenomenal.
Chief, minimum manning is?
Minimum staffing is 40 personnel per shift. So we contractually with the union and what we believe is necessary to provide the minimum level of service to our citizens, that is 40 per shift. When I add squad 8, that 8th ambulance, that takes us to 42, and then Sunday we'll be adding squad 9, that's going to take us to 44. But we have to have at least 40 personnel per shift, and with the latest firefighters that hit the streets, that gives us up to 57. Now the trick there is we're already down to, when they hit the streets Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday respectively, we'll already be at 56 per shift, because I had 3 people retire before between the time the academy started and graduation, there were 3 retirements.
Will fire have the same pension? I can't remember the legislation that went through last year.
No, the police pension got an additional contribution from the city. The fire pension did not have the same state law did not apply to the fire pension.
It had previously gone up to the 14%.
Like in 2000, Tom?
Yeah.
You've been getting it longer than
He is right. At some point, the state started a pension system. 1906. But I want to talk just for a second about the 10% of operations. I talked that included fuel and all of those types of things. There are 2 line items in there, and again, 80% of what we're doing is actually EMS. There's 2 of our single biggest purchases are EMS supplies. That makes up $505,000. We've budgeted for $505,000 out of that white portion is supplies, and $305,000 is our EMS billing company. And that is the amount of money we pay a third party to collect the revenue from those EMS runs. And that seems like a lot, but we want that to be as much as possible because it's a percentage. So for every dollar they collect, we pay them a small percentage, which would kind of take us to the next slide. The last slide, just four. The last slide I've got talks a little bit about the revenue that the fire department collects outside of any sales tax collection or anything like that. This is a $12 million of revenue that we bring in, and largely all of that goes right into the general fund. And while we fall far short of being self-sufficient, we do pride ourselves on trying to look for ways to bring money into the general fund and contribute to the overall good of the city. I do like to brag that outside of utilities, the fire department brings in more revenue than any other department.
So talk about the difference between EMS revenue and Life Ride.
Perfect. So Life Ride is what is on the utility bill, and that is paid by every citizen in town. There's and then that's paid just kind of a baseline of every utility bill in town. And then the EMS revenue, that 61% or $7.6 million is what is billed to for the ride. That is what we've expected to come in this year. Is that what we expect to come in this year, or was that actual revenue of last year?
That is a projection for FY26.
Thank you. So that is what, there will be those participants in Life Ride have no out-of-pocket expenses, but this $7.6 million is what their insurance companies pay when you take a ride in our ambulance. There's no sales tax with that or anything, but that is what an insurance company would pay for that ride to the hospital.
Are your grants federal grants, or are they from
Perfect.
private?
Yeah, that sliver of grant up there, the 7% that we brought in, is the SAFER grant from last year. We've got to thank you for going and building those relationships with our federal delegation last week, because that is a federal grant, and it's the SAFER grant, which is staffing of fire departments. They also have an AFG grant that is paid for cots and the Lucas CPR device and those types of things in the past. We've used those grants from the federal government that we're bringing those tax dollars right back here. And so of the 15 firefighters that graduated yesterday, thank you guys for coming, 12 of those salaries and benefits are paid under a SAFER grant. And so that's the $924,000 up there is what we anticipate in getting reimbursed. We pay them, and then the federal government will reimburse us for that for the next 3 years. So for the next 3 years, we're going to see right at $1 million in salaries and benefits coming back from the federal grant. And the grant money does not go into the general fund; it goes right back into the fire department fund. But everything else up there, which is about 38% of our overall budget, we're putting back into the general fund.
So we'll have to reapply for those SAFER grants
Multi-year.
That
every 3 years?
No, we already have been awarded full 3 years.
Okay.
Now, if we decide to grow the department, there's some real specifics. You have to do certain things, and this was, you had to add 12 people. Or when we added people, then we could get them to pay for it. But the SAFER grant is generally, and they change it every year because it's legislators that change it every year, but it's generally for adding people or preventing people from being laid off. It's not just for everyday expenses. They expect us to cover our own expenses, but there are some caveats there. And in this situation, we added people.
Okay. Thank goodness we didn't get doge.
That's what I know, that's what I was thinking, okay.
Well, it was touch and go there for a minute. They shut down the National Fire Academy, which they're just now reopening, which is a great training program. But when they said all grants are done, there was a week there where Tom and I were like, what do you think's going to happen? So we're glad that it's back. I would entertain any questions. I will mention we have 6 civilians. That number is going up from 5 to 6 in this budget. The $505,000 of EMS supplies that we're shuffling day in and day out, we're actually having a civilian added to help us in EMS logistics and warehousing and so forth. As on the last council earlier this month, Shannon presented an issue that we were going to be remodeling the building there at the Public Safety Complex, and all of our EMS operations will move into that. And when that gets up and running, we're going to add an additional warehouse person to help us with all the EMS logistics.
Totally random, but the Wagner County Fire Sales Tax, what is that?
The
A little
Wagner,
over $100,000, yeah, go on.
the Wagner County has a sales tax countywide that is dedicated just to the fire departments, and it is split evenly among every fire department, whether it's Oak Grove or whether it's Wagner or Coweta. We have a piece of that, and so the city of Broken Arrow or the Broken Arrow Fire Department is dedicated. There are dedicated funds that come in. It's a weird process because just like we come to you for approval of purchases, we go to Wagner County Commissioners for approval of purchases out of that bucket of money. And so we kind of try not to commingle those on projects. Like building projects is a great example. If we were gonna replace air conditioners on top of the training center, we really wouldn't want to go to Wagner County to do that because Shannon wants to be in charge of that project, not whoever is in Wagner County.
Right.
And so we use that to buy standalone items and those types of things, you know, furniture and stuff, and it has some restrictions. It's supposed to occur roughly in Wagner County, which is Station 4 or the training center.
Soon to be Station 8.
Yes.
So one or two things, Chair. I don't tell the directors what I want them to talk to you about because they're all really good, so they can cover whatever they want to cover. But there's two things I want to talk about. First one is quick update on Oak Grove. I mentioned it Tuesday night, and there's a couple things council may need to do as a part of that, so give them a quick update on that.
We are continuing to have conversation with Oak Grove about what the meaning of the new Oak Grove Fire Protection District is. Do they want us in there? Do they want us, what exactly they want? We kind of pinned them down and got them to send us an email that said exactly what they wanted. And part of that is having us dispatch in some manner for them. And we haven't committed to anything, but their request is that we continue to notify them of fires that come in or medical emergencies that come in into this new jurisdiction that they've acquired. That jurisdiction has always been ours, so all those 911 calls come to us, and they're saying, we still want you to answer those calls, but we want to somehow dispatch. So there's a piece of IT, there's a piece of Chief Arnold's team that are all gonna kind of have to see what it might cost us to make that a seamless process in the new Oak Grove jurisdictional boundaries. And then at some point, based on what they're asking, they're taking up responsibility. We legally, Trevor, I'm gonna shout out everybody in here. Trevor, you know, has informed me we don't have any legal obligation to respond to that area. The city of Broken Arrow has just done that for decades out of the goodness of our heart. That's the type of people we are, it's the type of community we are, we're givers. But now that they've got a governmental entity that is collecting ad valorem taxes out there, it is their responsibility to respond. And so they want to serve the citizens as the citizens said they wanted to be served. And so there may be a conversation about us withdrawing some of our services from that area. They don't have an ambulance, so that's not going to be withdrawn anytime soon. And they need help on significant fires, so they want to still have an auto aid agreement if there's a structure fire. But as far as immediate first response and maybe a car wreck or those types of things that are usually handled by one fire truck, they plan on handling that. So we're still in a lot of moving parts and conversations about that as it goes forward. But the big request right now is, can you dispatch us to the calls that are now in our area?
So once Station 8 is up and running though, we'll probably be running a lot of more calls out that way, I would think, especially with the ambulance, right?
It's largely Station 4's area out that
Okay.
direction, but we
So
are,
not more east.
their area goes all the way out to the river.
Yeah,
From 101st up to 31st.
right.
From our city limit boundary all the way to the river. It's a huge swath. It is gonna be interesting. We already have overlapping jurisdictions with a whole other volunteer department called Rolling Hills, and so there's a lot of moving parts of this. I'm glad that the county commissioners came, one of them, Commissioner Hanning, came and met with us and began conversations of what does this look like as we move forward.
Yeah, actually, Mayor and council members, just a few weeks ago, Jeremy and I, Norm, met with Commissioner Hanning and the leadership from Oak Grove. And to me, obviously, we want to take care of our people. And council said we want to be very careful if we're out there providing services outside our city limits, because we've got to be able to justify that. I'm not overly concerned right now. My point to them was, 3 years ago this August, we met with ONG, and their projections on how many customers they're going to have. Kenny was there, Jennifer Rush was there, it was in August, I think 3 years ago, is they're projecting by about 2056 of having between 98 and 110,000 customers. Okay, with the population of their area, with Broken Arrow being around 210, but the other one being around another 30 or 40,000. Well, I want to make sure that as we grow and as unincorporated Wagner County grows, the expectation for us doesn't grow without being compensated. And so that's what I'm concerned about. Not right now, because we still need to go provide ambulance service into that area.
They
But
have to
my
have a
concern,
discussion right now, so
Yeah,
that they're fully aware.
and that's what I want to make sure of what the expectation is, and having some type of an agreement for everything we do. So as recollections fade, agreement doesn't fade.
Right.
This is what Broken Arrow is going to do, and this is what, and then if future chiefs, council, city managers have to build upon that, we have a document to reference, not somebody's recollection.
I think it's very important you have that type of protocol, because as we do grow, now, Chief, do they come into the city of Broken Arrow in one of our subdivisions and fight a fire?
We have requested them to come assist us on a lot of fires out that way, because they have a tanker truck, and some of those areas, the water supply is not fantastic because it's outside. I want to be clear, it's outside the city of Broken Arrow, and so it's not our water distribution system. So they've come and helped that, and actually that's already set up and in place and automatic. So if there's a structure fire that's far east that we are responding to, we ask them to come every time.
Well, I think it's just important to make sure that we keep a protocol in place. That's what we're gonna be doing, and going from there as we build out, because part of that area is gonna be in the city of Broken Arrow, and some of it's not gonna be in the city of Broken Arrow.
I'm gonna take a liberty. Commissioner Hanning, more or less, handshake agreement said, as we move out into that area and annex, he said he was interested in or willing to do a annexation of Oak Grove's fire department, so there would not be overlapping jurisdiction. And I appreciate his comments on that, but there's nothing that requires that to happen. And so as we do look to annex, those need to be incorporated in to the conversation of, okay, how does it affect, I'm assuming the schools, how does this affect the water district, how does this affect this entity, and overall, or how does this affect the county? I'm not familiar with how we do annexations, but those governmental entities that are these volunteer fire departments collecting ad valorem taxes should be a part of the conversation going forward. Give those citizens the ability to say, we don't need two fire departments. We don't want to pay property taxes to the city of Broken Arrow and the Oak Grove Fire Department, which is happening right now. The Rolling Hills Fire Department has a property tax to run their fire department, and they're in the city limits, so they're paying GO bonds to us. And they get our response and their response, and we're both legally obligated to go.
Mainly wanted to give you an update, is there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work being done to come up with a good plan, to make sure as we come out of the gate, we've really thought through how we do this and what the expectations are for Broken Arrow, and we'll continue this conversation. At some point, I think council is going to have to make some decisions, approve some documents. I mean, we need Wagner County needs us, because there's projects we're going to be working on together, like we did with the amphitheater. So it's important that we have those good communications, good relations, and we have them right now. And Commissioner Hanning was really great in this meeting, but I made it clear, obviously there's a cost for us providing that service, and I want to make sure what is expected, because I have to justify that, so.
Do they still have the rule, Kenny, the 2 units per acre?
Yes.
So that kind of stymies it, you know what I mean, certainly the growth, because I can only put the 2 units per acre.
And I didn't mention it, but there's a very small yellow sliver up there that says out-of-city response. We're not doing, that area is generating about $99,000 just in people who have said, I want to sign up for the fire subscription program. Independent of Life Right, we have a fire subscription program for those folks that live out there. If you're outside the city and you want our services, you can pay for our fire subscription program, and that has generated a little bit of money. If you don't pay that and we respond, you're billed out of the manual of fees. The cost is out of the manual of fees. And so that $99,000, that small sliver, is what we have been generating for our general fund in those responses to that unincorporated area out in Wagner County. And we also know about $150,000 of that EMS, big 61%, is generated from out there.
So will that go down though?
The EMS won't change at all. We're having this big discussion right now between the county and the city over that yellow sliver. They don't want, and I get this, boils down to they don't want the city of Broken Arrow to charge those citizens who just said they voted to pay property taxes to Oak Grove. They also don't want to have to pay a subscription or be invoiced. If we show up, it's $750 per hour per fire truck. We send 4 fire trucks every fire, and we're there 2 or 3, 4 hours. And that's a $10,000, $5,000 to $10,000 bill every time. So they have a fire, they can't say don't come.
Yeah.
We can go, and they have to accept our help, but then they are going to get, and that's where it's going to come to y'all's level. They're going to get this bill from us for $10,000 to put their house fire at, and they're going to say, I just voted for Oak Grove, I didn't need you guys here. And we're like, we could not come, your house was on fire.
Yeah.
And so they're going to come to the leadership of this town and go, we're getting double billed and we don't want this. They're going to be upset.
Is that just fire, or is that fire and EMS?
Just-
Like that, for the out-of-city responses that you're getting money for?
We offer Life Ride out of the city, and we offer a fire subscription out of the city. And if you buy both, it's $150 a year.
Does the revenue also include, I know there was a partnership you were talking about between Broken
Yes.
Arrow and Coeta?
That's part of that little yellow
That
sliver.
little sliver,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, my concern, mutual aid might be 30 calls in 2025, and they'd like for every time we go to be considered mutual aid. Well, what if in 2027 it's 100 mutual aid calls?
Yeah.
That's my concern, is that now we're running out there that many times, and how do we make sure our department, our city stays protected? So I may be more concerned, the chief doesn't, obviously, he's trying to find the right balance, because he's about serving people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got to work through this, and so far it seems to be going
As we
really
are
well.
as well, but we want to serve our people first. Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
They chose, didn't they?
Yeah.
good,
Anything else? Thank you.
thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
You want to cover Bama?
Good job, Chief.
Everybody's gonna wanna have a hand up.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, moving on here. We'll take a break here in about 15 minutes. Moving into Bama, the Broken Arrow Municipal Utility Authority Council has that responsibility. So for FY 2026, and we're going to kick this off, I'm going to ask Kenny to cover the Bama and answer any questions council may have.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So you can see right there that our FY 2026 Bama budget is $177 million, just a little bit up. It includes expenditures, transfers out, ending fund balance, capital outlay, and our debt service. Compared to our last year's, our FY 2025, you can see we were just over $200 million. So we're actually an overall decrease of 11.66% from last year's. Almost 36% of that overall decrease is actually in our capital outlay. Getting projects done, and like I said, they're actually getting some projects done, and you'll see that here in a minute. Also, an 8.36 increase in operating costs, reserve fund balance, and debt service. So as we complete projects or get them in design, construction with the loan, we have to debt service that. And I think Tom's touched on that a little bit, so we'll touch on that a little bit more as we turn the page. So here's some of our highlights. You'll recall that we've done a rate study, and we actually try to do all of our utility bills, and Bama is water, sewer, there's actually the stormwater in there as well, and we try to cover that with our utility bills, and there's a few others in there that we'll touch on as well, solid waste and recycling being a big part of that. And the rate study, it was a 5-year plan, it was adopted, and then we got hit with that thing called the COVID, right? Kind of really messed everybody up, not just Broken Arrow, it messed everybody up. And what do we do with our utility rates? We actually kind of paused our increases, if you'll remember, a few years back, because we didn't know what was going to happen. So we didn't do our standard increase. We kind of let it slip. We were right in the process of doing another 5-year study at that point. We also added solid waste and recycling into that 5-year study. That program's done, and we're going to bring it to the authority and the governing body to present it and see where everything is. But we are moving forward as though we have adopted that. It has not been adopted yet, but we're moving in that direction. So the rates that you will see in here will reflect that proposed study that we'll bring to you. All right. And also the rates themselves will be discussed in the manual fees that Tom's going to do a little bit later. So let's talk real quick about pay-as-you-go capital. What does that mean? That is the capital projects that we actually will go out into construction. We may do them ourselves, or we actually bid them out, and we pay for them as we go using the revenues that we generate in that year. So right now, our pay-as-you-go capital is expected to be right around $8.7 million. Now, what do we do with the other projects that we're not doing at pay-as-you-go? That's the loan program. Broken Arrow is one of the biggest users of the Oklahoma Revolving Fund, ORF, used to be called State Revolving Fund, loan program. I think we're right up there with, there's probably about 4 or 5 communities that are well over $100 million with this revolving fund program, and Broken Arrow is one of them.
We'll make a point today at the Cities United meeting. We had one city that the city manager talked about. They're in really dire straits because the city had decided to defer the maintenance. You remember that comment was made, Mayor? Yep. So deferring the maintenance means it's costing more, and they're in a situation they don't know what to do. And so Broken Arrow has always looked at, we're going to maintain our system within the plans we create, which means because you don't have the revenue on hand, you actually have to do it through the bonding or the loan process.
That's a great point. For those that have been here in Broken Arrow a while, we grew so quickly that you have to kind of defer some maintenance. What's the easiest thing to defer? The things that are underground that you don't see. Water, sewer. Well, that still catches up to you. Broken Arrow has done an outstanding job really the last decade. Michael's really taken it to the next level, but we really stopped deferring that maintenance and saying we got to get on top of this. And it is constantly spending capital to improve those systems. So how do we do that with the revolving fund? We go to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. Basically right now we're going about every year and somewhere between $20 to $25 million that cover basically to water, wastewater. So the wastewater side is actually called the Clean Water, falls under the Clean Water Act, and then anything to do with our drinking water will fall under what is called the Drinking Water Act. So there are 2 federal acts, and the monies that are put into this program come through that process. So the last item that you see up there, our proposed additional OWRB projects are just at $25 million, just under that. That's for this coming year. If you look at the next line, our existing OWRB projects from the previous year is just under $25 million for a total of $49.5 million for the 2 years. These projects, almost to a T, will go through engineering and construction, so Charlie's department, and run through Emily Rowland in her division. And like I said, it's water and sewer. The biggest thing that Broken Arrow has done over the last probably 7-8 years working with Mr. Spurgeon is to make sure that we're projecting our projects further out. So we run a capital improvement program where we're looking 7-8 years, even trying to get out there 10 to 15 years and have all of these monies programmed. It changes a lot because your needs, but we're trying to project it. The other thing that we're trying to do with that, which has probably been really recent in the last few years, okay, well, we're projecting projects. What does a debt service look like? We've got to start controlling that debt service. So Charlie's team working with Tim Robbins and Finance, have really done a really good job over the last few years of doing that. So let's take a look at some of the projects that we're talking about. Well, I think that's next. Personal, yeah. Expenditures, personnel services, almost just over $28 million for the personnel that fall into the BAMA. And that's several of the departments that fall into BAMA. It's not, we have solid waste recycling, we have utilities, engineering's in that. Ryan's waving at me, he's in that. Who am I leaving out? Oh, parts of Tim.
Stormwater.
Yep, stormwater is in that as well. So all of those departments that weren't in general fund that we talked about earlier are over here in BAMA, and the revenue is help paying for that. So you can see our expenditures are 28.2. Other services, Tom talked about that transfer out. That's probably coming in some of the other services and materials. And he has it down here, transfer out a little bit further. So total operating is $58 million. Our debt service that we just talked about to cover all of those projects is just under 14 million. And then that transfer out that I just mentioned is 24 million. That transfer goes back into the general fund. And beta, thank you. Next slide. Okay, so here we just talked about some of the departments. City manager is, I think it's Cricket and me. Finance, general government, general services, I went through the others. And in your budget book, in the BAMA, you can see the pages where we talk about each one of these departments, what's in their projections. And again, I'd be happy to talk about those, or the director can if you have any questions. So I don't know if you have any right now that you want to address. If not, feel free just to reach out to us. Okay. Pay-as-you-go capital is in section 3, pages 41 through 47. I don't know if there's any project that you wanted to identify. We can turn to the next one. So this is the loan program that we talked about. And when we are talking BAMA, water, wastewater, not the solid waste recycling, this is the biggest fund that we have to use to get to those big projects. The clean water that I just discussed is the wastewater side of it. And basically, that's also the RMUA that we are part of. The 5 cities that are part of our RMUA, Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Jinx, Owasso, and Bixby, where only 2 have ever participated and paid into that facility. Hakey Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant also discharges to the Arkansas River, but that is a jointly owned, really only by 2 with capital, but the board consists of all 5, a regional. You'll see the first 2 items on top of that have to do with the RMUA. So Hakey Creek plant itself, composting. If you'll remember a big move here with the bills at the state level in March, Broken Arrow was a leader in the state of Oklahoma by passing a resolution to basically encourage our legislators to slow down and let's do a science-based approach, not an emotional-based approach on land application of biosolids, which is the end product of your wastewater treatment. That held this project, the first one up, at $12 million, or composting. We want to go to composting on the biosolids. Midwest City already does that at their plant. So we held this for a while. Since Senate Bill 003, it passed at the Senate but was not heard at the representative side, so it died this session. We've had a lot of discussions with everybody at the state level. We want to go ahead and move forward. There is a lot of discussion that if this bill comes back, that their representatives are really pushing to have some exemptions, composting being one of them. That way Midwest City, Tulsa, Broken Arrow, and other communities that may be composting can continue to do that. That's not really the concern at the Senate side. They have a different concern. So they're very open to this.
And composting isn't like we're not keeping it, that's what's sprayed on people's land.
It's actually, it is turned into true compost.
Okay.
I have some in my office. I didn't bring it, my bad. That came from Hakey Creek. No, no.
It's pretty, actually,
What
it's
do we
just a
do
little
with it
earthy
then?
smell.
It actually gets sold and people can use it in composting, really just landscaping and
Is that
stuff
right?
like that.
And it doesn't poison the soil and
No,
all?
it's treated. That's where we talk about emotion base.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
It's called
understand that
clean.
it is treated. It's already gone through the entire treatment process, and this is the byproduct. The material can't just disappear. You can take it down to a certain level, but you still have material left. Under the federal regulations, there's only 3 ways to get rid of it. You can either land apply, take it to a landfill, or incinerate it. Well, even in the incineration process, the material's it's still going into the atmosphere and can still fall out, but it doesn't just disappear. There's something about, science there. So, composting, right now, the state of Oklahoma is open for the next session to have some of those discussions.
Yeah, because I can tell you now, when I drive to Oklahoma City, when I go through Wellston, you can smell it.
That
And
is
that's
not
why I'm-
composting.
Yeah, that's what I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's horrible.
And Oklahoma City they are going a different direction with biosolids. And they're
Well, I'm
working.
glad to hear we're composting.
So the 12 million is our share of that project. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it's like 53 million or something total. And we got a grant and Tulsa's their share. So this would be the construction. Then the next project is the lift station that directly feeds into the Hickey Creek plant construction. We have 2 million for phase 4. There is some discussion about doing a flow equalization basin. So an FEB on the front end to try to control those flows. But that portion would go to that. So the first 2 items, if you see there, we're just under 19 million total. The first 2 of 14 is RMUA. RMUA. The rest of this would be basically flowing into our side of it, which is the Lynn Lane plant. We've got a Covington Creek sewer improvements. Covington Creek is way out, Oneida Road, Kenosha area. Highway 51 sewer extension. You've heard about that one a lot this past year. This is the Bluebell going through the subdivision, taking up the capacity. When we first heard about it, it was at the council meeting. Immediately, I know I was texting Tim Robbins, I think Charlie was texting me. We're all like, do we know anything about this? What's going on here? We formulate a plan at council meeting to address this. By the next council meeting, we were actually testing, had flows, and had a plan in place to pull Bluebell off, because Bluebell is actually taking up the capacity of the sewer line at the beginning. Today, they're working with us and they're slowing that down, so we've got it under control, but we need a future. This is industrial flows, right? We don't want to take industrial flows through a residential neighborhood. So we have a plan in place to route that around. $2.3 million for construction. We're already in design on it. We're moving that quickly on it. And it will help Bluebell and to the south and the east of them as that develops. Then the last 4 on here are really kind of, most of them are up the same area. Adams Creek, Northwest Force Main. We found a location where some of our force main is actually outside of the easement. We have to relocate. We talked about buying an easement from the property owner. They've got plans to develop, so we need to move it. We've gone back to the engineer or actually the contractor. It's outside of the statute of limitations. It was done 10, 12 years ago. So we're gonna have to relocate a little bit of it. It's not as bad as we first thought. We thought it was gonna be quite a bit more. Turnberry is up in the northeast part of town, near Dearborn, 41st Street, and 209, 37th Street. It's a lift station up there. Really, the next couple of lift stations, we just need to rehab them. They're older. We need to maybe improve their wet well pumps for sure. The last one, Windsor Lift Station, we've talking about possibly taking it offline, eliminate it. A lot of these lift stations went in as development gets out on the end of outside of your limit, or right at the end of your limits, and they come into the subdivision. They have to pump back. Well, then years later, you've grown to meet them, and now you might be able to take them offline, and that's one that we're looking at. So just under 19 million for the clean water side, wastewater. You can go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How about our plant?
Lynn Lane?
Lynn Lane plant, as far as its sewer, the leftover from the sewer, how are we dealing with it?
Like when we have the big heavy rains right now?
No, a sludge.
Oh,
What's left
sorry.
over?
I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you.
from the compost? Are we
I need to
gonna-
ask the finance guy to explain engineering.
He's on top of it.
He's on top
He
of it.
told me
We
he's
go
gonna
to
give me-
landfill.
He told me he's gonna give me a test. He's so anxious.
Well, I failed the test, but he got it. We go to a landfill with
I knew
Lynn
he
Lane.
did.
And I will, since you brought up, the concern about going to landfills, obviously, is if the whole state's taking biosolids to landfills, who's got control of the landfills? Your tipping fees go up, you can't land apply, and not many are incinerating, so you've almost created a monopoly. You can also create instability in the landfill, so those are concerns. So, but we take Lynn Lane to landfill. Yes, sir.
Another question, we've used the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for years.
Yes.
How's that, it's a state agency, how's our interest set up?
It's
on that?
usually around 2.5%, maybe 3%, and then they,
It is lower typically than a conventional type loan or a revenue bond or any other of our options. And then we have the advantage too is that we, unlike a loan where you immediately start paying interest on day one, because they're drawdown, we don't actually have to start paying those interest costs until completion of the construction period.
I knew it was very beneficial,
Yeah.
you know. what
that's the
we
beneficial
used it.
part, yes, sir.
So I just didn't know.
There
what
are
the interest was.
admin fees with the FAP portion of them, but like we are in current discussion to possibly take our loan application a little earlier this year so that we can combine with other municipalities so that our share of those admin costs are less than if we went by ourselves.
Yeah, I just wondered how that worked. I knew we used it for years.
It's very beneficial, and we are very strategic in working with them and how we do it.
Thank
Right.
you.
So the other projects on the Safe Drinking Water Act can go through pretty quick. Our water treatment plant, Verdigris River Water Treatment Plant, flow meter modifications. We just need to update our flow meter at the plant. UWA Grand River line connection. This has been a big discussion with Bama. We actually have the memo of understanding in, and I believe they've just reached back out to us and talking about the fee, because before we can enter into an agreement, I've got to have that, tie down that fee. That'll be coming to you here pretty quick. But we actually have a line connection with them for 1.5 million. The raw water pump, this is actually big. So when we built the water plant in 2012 and turned it on in 2014, we actually had the raw water pump station, which is out in the Oxbow area, Adams Creek and the Verdigris River. It had 5 slots for pumps. We put in 3. Each pump could do 10 million gallons, so we could get 30 million gallons into our pre-sedimentation basins, our reservoir. Over the years, we left those 2 spots open. We wanted to come back and put more pumps in it in case we needed more. We also want to do what's called VFDs, frequency drive pumps, variable frequency drive pumps. So I can maybe pump 6 in, or I can pump 12 in. We're going to size it where we can pump differently. That's what that third one is. We can put the pumps in for $615,000, and now we actually can go over. We can pump up to the capacity of the line. So, but always was planned. We just 10 years now, going on 12 years out, we're ready to do it. Next to old line, that's so in the old town area, water lines, we've been ongoing in that area. So you've got about $2.1 million to continue to address the old town area. The last 2 items, Lynn Lane, 9th Street, 12-inch water line from the turnpike, so that's Creek Turnpike down south to Florence, 111th. This is the Hillenberg property area, if you're familiar with all that area. They're tied in from the subdivision like on a 2 or 4-inch line. I can't remember what Jerry told me. I can't believe they haven't been screaming all these years. We need to tie this in. 12 inches in arterial size, so we need to go and loop all this in. When utilities showed me that, I was a little surprised. So that will continue that property there. So that's just under 600,000. So the last one is a 2 million gallon water tank up on Tiger Hill. If you've been paying attention right now, we've been restoring the top. Looks like it's really dark gray right now because we have to come back and paint it when they're done. but the floor of the tank has had a lot of problems. We will be able to get through this year, even with the floor in that condition, but then we're gonna go back and restore the tank floor. We didn't wanna do it this summer because I wanted to get water in the tank in case I need it.
And then we'll put the tiger on it, right?
We will put a tiger on it. I think
my
we should.
goodness.
I need to up that $1 million. But, so the safe water is just over 6.1, so the total again was just under 25 million. Next slide, if there is one.
It's
That's
Tim's
it.
presentation.
That's what I thought.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, we're scheduled to have a bite to eat now, so we want to take a break and grab something to eat and then just do a working, yes, okay.
Good as some jumping jacks and warm up.
Look at the emoji, look at the
Don't
beautiful.
get them in.
There to the first slide. While you're getting that up, Mr. Schwab had me bring in a sample of the compost. Apparently family drives around with compost in her car, so this is a fantastic opportunity. So when you're done eating, we'll be more than happy to pass it around.
It actually smells lovely.
I remember when the first sample came into my office, it did. You would not have been able to tell any difference
It's like minty fresh.
from normal compost. When we went down to Midwest City, it was the same.
I like it.
It's really,
Good.
really cool.
Oh, I like it.
All right. So as always, I'm Timothy Robbins, the Utilities Director here for the City of Broken Arrow. I am excited to present with you tonight and talk about our operating and capital budget for the Utilities Department with my friends Misty and Sledge there on the board. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Next slide, please. So really, the main thing within the Utilities Department, we are multidisciplinary all the way through, so we handle all of the water and wastewater. In the next year fiscal, we're looking to be around 100 employees total. And one really cool fact that I wanted to pull out here is pulling back in the Action Center into utilities where we can address our water and wastewater calls and direct these. Maria's over with us and is being our front point for communications in our Action Centers. So that's a really cool new element within our org chart. I'd be remiss to not mention our Assistant Director, Brandy Parks, and our plant managers, Lou at our water plant, and David Handy at our wastewater plant, and Jerry Hanwinkle, our utility systems manager. Everything you see inside this budget goes through all three of those, and I could not be more proud of the team that we have as we're going into this next budget year. I can't tout them enough of everything that they do to make sure that the water taps turn on in every household in Broken Arrow. So, next slide. So, wanted to go over our utilities operating budget. And I really wanted to pull this out to where we can see some of the bigger slices. So in this proposed operating budget, we are proposing a $27,025,998. That is encompassing all of our operating funds. And I really wanted to kind of highlight the two big players on our budget. So water distribution and water plant. So obviously these are our highest costs. We really have seen a really stark increase in operating costs at both of our plants as it relates to power and gas and chemicals. So throughout this budget, you might notice as comparable to last year, our chemical costs and delivery costs and product costs have gone up substantially. We actively try to manage those by finding better partners out in the area to purchase chemical from, and different aspects, ways that we can start cutting down some of those costs, inclusive of new generator systems, new processes, etc. But this is one of the increases that you're going to see throughout our budget. Likewise within the sewer. So kind of surprisingly there that our in-town sewer costs, our operating in-town sewer costs are exceeding that of the operating costs at the wastewater plant. A lot of that is attributed to improvements that Mr. Schwab mentioned with OWRB loans investing into that plant. Those improvements have actually reduced or kept down those rising costs at our plant by the new belt filter press that was installed. That has reduced our overall trips, our cost of trips to go to the landfill. We've reduced that product tipping at the landfill, which is incredible. When you think about running trucks 5 days a week down to almost 1 day a week. We took our product from roughly 12%, no, it was roughly about 9% before we did this,
on outdated equipment, and we are now pushing almost 20% cake. So we have taken that much water out of the product that we send to the landfill, which you're seeing a direct result in a decreased cost there. So in-town sewer is, the biggest cost there is going through lift stations. Those operating costs of our 32 lift stations throughout town. Additionally, you saw the capital improvement cost to eliminate those. That's gonna help us drive down those costs as well. Going into, when you were looking at the operating costs, I thought this was a really cool concept to talk through, is when you're showing our personnel services versus our materials and supplies and other contracting services. We do have a large contract services contingent in this that helps us with a lot of the construction, a lot of the maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance that we add into it, and that's how we keep some of those revolving costs down. It's through this element of contracting and maintaining. The materials and supplies, this is gonna be distributed throughout for what you see in our metering. A lot of our material supplies, we're adding meters throughout town. You think about those 800 households, 1,000 taps that come in every year. A lot of these costs are in there to buy that materials and then bill those out subsequently. We also have a lot of material replacements in our water line and sewer line divisions, where we'll have those replacements in there. So healthy contingents in that to be able to handle, like what happened on Aspen this last year. Those costs are, quarter 4 of 24 was a rough period. And a lot of with diligent budgeting that we have in there for this, it helped us to overcome those costs without having to come back to you and ask for it. So that is what a lot of this is. We've seen some increased costs here, trying to build contingency for when those events happen, because it's not if, it's when, and we have to be prepared. That's what we've done here today. But really wanted to highlight that as that differential with our personnel services. We do a lot of work with the staff that we have, and we are efficient about it, and that's what keeps those costs down and our quality up.
So Tim,
Yes,
speaking
ma'am.
of what happened on Aspen, obviously we have aging lines.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to know, like, where an area we need to be looking at or being prepared for, or, because obviously it's going to be happening more. I would
Yeah.
think it's not gonna happen less.
Absolutely. So we were actually talking about this earlier today. I'm so happy you queued that up for me. So we are looking at condition analysis with certain consulting companies where we can evaluate some of our main feed lines coming into town, where we would know our bigger systems, seeing how those are aging. But what we've implemented this last year with in-house forces is trying to start tracking out where our breaks are, mapping those on GIS and getting better correlations, not just simply getting the call, responding, fixing, and going away. We're going to take those data analytics. It's my world. I love data more than anybody in the world. It's that I love it. So what I like to do is I like to take those breaks, put them into GIS, and start mapping those to where we can do take the information that we have and make decisions from there, and start working with engineering in helping us program that out with those subdivisions. So if we have a lot in one region, we'll start looking at those in depth, and we'll put those on the long-term replacement plan. So that's how we do every day. So it's great. And then as we grow with bigger lines, we'll hire in infrastructure inspections. So let's go into capital. As what you see here is a capital expenditure request proposed of $4,100,500, and that is it's like we kind of reflected back to our operating costs where our big expenditures are, kind of similar to here. So we're roughly looking into water distribution. I'll kind of say throughout this, the common theme is going to be equipment. There's a lot of equipment within this allocation that we are replacing and as we're growing. One of the biggest, and we'll kind of talk through a couple initiatives here at the end where I'll highlight some of these, but you'll see throughout here a lot of our costs will be for equipment. The equipment that we roll into a water break area. Those 2.5-ton trucks, they're expensive and they only increase. But we try to maintain. We do a great job maintaining our equipment, so where we can extend it. But a lot of the equipment in here will be excavators. There is trucks with new trucks for our locators. So there's a new locator truck where we're implementing new radar technology, underground radar technology. You've seen all these underground utility companies coming in through town. All those lines underneath there everywhere. We're trying to find better ways to do our daily job, save money, and a lot of that's what you're gonna see in this capital budget. Hydro excavators are in there to help us go in around those lines and excavate a little safer, as well as with that radar technology. It's really, really cool. So the biggest contributor here, utility construction. There's several projects in there and large-scale equipment to help those. That is the team that went out and did the large-scale repairs. There are repairs, and by investing into this team, we can keep those loan dollars down by doing a lot of in-house construction, and I love construction. So we're going to push those guys as hard as we can and get a lot in the ground. Sewer, that 20%, so you're seeing that a bit high with investments into our lift stations. So those lift stations, there's some of them that are coming of age. You saw some of those in the capital, in the OWRB loans. Well, this is investing in the ones that aren't quite ready for replacement, but just need some love. So this is that's where some of that is. New controls where we can monitor them better and implement a better process there. Try and reduce those costs as well. Water plant as well, so there's always we want to invest into that. There is some improvements in there where we are investing into existing facilities out there that were sitting dormant, and we're putting more equipment and use in those, as well as communications out there as well. We need to do some fiber optic lines out to our raw water pump station that Mr. Schwab was talking about. That'll be part of this. So next slide. So kind of trying to pull these two very large costs together to try and show something real world of what this entire department and what that budget does for you. And that is to create a water distributed to town, high quality water throughout the entire year of 2024, 4.5 billion gallons of water served to the residents of Broken Arrow. That's what that budget does, and it's incredible. Also, when you take it on the other side, 3.7 billion gallons of wastewater treated and safely released back into the Arkansas River from both RMUA and Bama. So that is only our Broken Arrow flows taken out of Tulsa. No Tulsa flows in this. It's only Broken Arrow flows, and that's a really cool number. It's increasing, and they're doing a great job with that. So that's what that budget's doing. So let's talk about some initiatives. Go to the next slide. So as part of this budget, one of the biggest things that we are really touting in here, the sewer preventative maintenance program. So within this, there'll be operating costs for personnel, as well as additional capital to buy that truck that you're sitting there seeing. It's going to be similar to that, but it's called a jetter truck. And this jetter truck's going to come with a new crew chief truck, as well as ultrasonic investigation program called an SLRAT. And this is going to help us do a better job of investigating the sewer system before we spend a lot of time cleaning the sewer system. So we can be diligent with our crew loadings, where I can investigate before I spend a lot of time cleaning. If the investigation says it doesn't need to be cleaned, then why clean it? So that's what this program is going to be, where we can implement this across town. I'm really, really excited about this program. We'll also have some facilities build out. You know, we are expanding for the public, for our field services teams out at the old Windstream building. So there will be some of these upgrades and allotment for that. As well as one really cool program you see there on the right, Adams Creek Northwest Lift Station. I've talked about sewer rags far too much this week, but that is what this is investing in. It's a plague upon the sewer system, flushable wipes. This is something that's going to help us tremendously at Adams Creek Northwest. And the best part of these two projects, the next one, Bluff Landing Road water line replacement. This is all the way out east of the water plant out on Bluff Landing. So we're going to replace that water line, long time coming. But these are installed by internal forces. And that's what I couldn't be more proud about, is our internal team is going to be installing that conveyor there. We'll be out there doing the water line replacement. And as well as the next one there is water plant SCADA controls. So our water plant's about 10 years old. As you know, even with your iPhones, it seems like new technology comes out every half a year, every 2 months on iPhones. Is that the? So what we've got is, this is SCADA controls for the water plant that helps us run. It actually runs the plant. And this will be upgraded controls. It'll be teamed with that number there, as well as that operations build out. There's some capital rollover that you see before the capital section and the allotment this year. That's what those numbers are, is combining that and building out a new SCADA program. So a lot of really, really cool stuff coming up this year. Very excited about to continue providing the best quality water and sewer service to town. So, that, if I have any questions.
Did a great job.
Yeah.
And of course the compost.
Yeah. And that.
I do have one.
Yes, sir.
And it kind of ties in with the question the mayor asked earlier about ways to prevent lines from having issues and stuff. Don't we currently have a program where we try to inspect X amount of percentage of lines
Yes.
throughout the years?
Yes, sir. So we do have an active preventative maintenance program. Our inspection program includes regular jetting. So we get out, we have areas of town that we know are either a little older, where we have like roots and stuff like that build up that just needs some constant maintenance. And we put that on a list, and our crews go attack that list as possible. So we need, with this additional crew there, that allows us to fully designate a crew to that. So when we have emergencies across town, they get pulled off that maintenance program to go and to do that at the emergency, and then they'll go back. Well, you can imagine how inefficient of time that is. But we also want to be extremely diligent on that. We dropped everything to go take care of emergencies. So this crew will specifically stay on preventative maintenance. Currently, we have a jetting program. If during the jetting, we see something we don't like, we'll go put a camera in it. We have a very sophisticated camera truck where we can inspect the line with a camera, actually a robot that will drive up in there, and we'll do conditional line assessments. And then we have digging crews right behind them. If we find something of issue, we dig it up. So we attack on a very specific targets. We don't just clean where that doesn't need to be cleaned. They know the system. We're using GIS to track out where our issues are, and we'll routinely clean those.
Any other questions of the governing body to Tim?
Great.
Thanks. All right, great job.
Thank you very much.
Sure. And thanks for showing Bill.
Now the dinner's done, I can pass
Nice
it
job.
around.
Ho. So, actually, moving on, next item is the general obligation bond funds, and it's section 4, pages 60 through 71. Next slide, please. So, just a quick overview. $98.5 million in current 2011, 2014, and 2018 bond projects in the construction cycle. The proposed sale for this year is right around $17 million. We won't know exactly till we get the assessed value number in August. That could go up like it has in most years recently. And just depending on if it turns out to be $17 million, the total 2018 bond sale amount that we've actually sold is about $192 million out of $210 million. So we're very close to actually selling, and we'll end up, I believe, selling the 10-year program in 8 years, approximately. So now, I'm not going to go through the project for respect of time, but I would encourage council members to look at those, because obviously you're going to get a chance to see those a couple of additional times when we come to the council meeting, because you have to approve the sale. And so look at those if you have the opportunity. Once again, it's going right from what the remaining projects that are in the various propositions. So it's pretty clear which ones we're doing. I think it's mainly Proposition number 1, and we've also got some Prop 5 and Prop 6 money that we're looking at selling as well. So let's go ahead and move on, Tara, please. So the 2026 bond initiative, the only thing I want to mention about that, just a couple of things. We have the meeting on June 18th. We will not know exactly what the amount that the council could take to the voters until sometime in the middle to later part of August of this year. We've been tentatively looking at around $400 million. That official number, we won't know until we get the assessed value. Then finance, Cindy and Tom take it to John Wolf, and they do the calculations to determine exactly what that number would be. So just a reminder, we are right on schedule in terms of where we wanted to be at this time. Council has until essentially the end of January of next year to pass the ordinance that lists the projects and has the resolution calling the special election. So the heavy lifting of the governing body really starts next month, and then it gets a little bit heavier in September, but the months of October and November, and December actually, is going to be really heavy because of the painstaking process of going from approximately $1.2 billion down to whatever number that is, approximately $400 million. So that's all I wanted to mention. Like I said, I give updates every time, but because we're recording, and I'm sure some folks will watch this, is that we'll know that number in just a few months, and then we'll start adjusting what we will have in terms of the propositions, the percentages. There's still things we need to do about what percentage you want out of 100% to be Prop 1, Prop 2, all the way through Proposition 6. So, okay, at this time, something we added for some of the newer directors, we added this probably about 7 years ago. The request of the council members, led by Councilman at the time Parks, is an update from the street director every year about what roads we're going to be doing as a part of the street maintenance. And so Tim and Zach are here tonight to basically cover what's being planned for the upcoming fiscal year. Tim?
Here to wow us. Yes, wow us.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, appreciate you having us up here. And before I start, I'd like to thank Tom and Tara for all their help and guidance during this budget time. They've been a blessing for us. So, and Zach's done a lot of work, and I appreciate everything he's done to help. Back in 2017, a quarter-cent sales tax to fund the street improvements, drainage improvements, traffic signalization. That fund was created in 2017, and the tax currently, as Tom mentioned a while ago, generates about $5.4 million, just under that. So the council heard some of this information back in our public meeting that we had a couple months ago, but I want to go back over just a little bit of the PCI and the range and definitions of it. And that's what this chart up here is. Every 5 years, the city hires a third-party consultant to come out, and they scan every street in town, and they give us a PCI score during that time. And the last time we had it done was in the fall. They did the scan in the fall of 2022. We got the report in 2023, the fall of 2023. And Zach's worked with the consultants to update for the roads that's been rehabbed or widened since that time, since that 2022. So the PCI, as I mentioned that night, was it stands for Pavement Condition Index, and that really gives you a snapshot of the health condition of all your streets, the condition of them, and they measure that PCI on 0 to 100, and 100 would be a brand new road. So keep in mind that we have, I mentioned that night as well, that we have 669 subdivisions in Broken Arrow, and that number, as you well know, is growing. So that's a lot to take care of. Some of our subdivisions are concrete, some of them are asphalt, and this chart here shows the breakdown of how they rate those
categories into 7 different categories. The categories are excellent, very good, good, fair, marginal, poor, and very poor. Next slide, please. The cost over time. The message from this slide is the longer you wait, the more it costs to make the improvements to the streets. We can take early measures to extend the street, to extend the life of the street by doing fog seals and slurry seals, things like that. But when a street is in good condition, we can go out there. Actually, we're gonna do more of an active, aggressive, I guess I should say, sealing the cracks and slurry sealing. We've got a machine and we've been waiting on this last year. It still hasn't come in, so as soon as it does, you'll see us out there slurry sealing some of the streets, so in parking lots and all. But to slurry seal a road that will extend the life of the road is about $3.50 a square yard to do that. We can do it in-house cheaper than that, but that'll extend the life of that street. At some point, the street will need to be milled and overlaid, and currently that's about $14.50 a square yard to do that, which that's still reasonable. But if you wait too long, the street will need a full depth reconstruction, and that cost is going to be more about $48.50 a square yard. So you can see with those three numbers, why it's important to get on it whenever when the road's still in good shape and you can extend that line, seal those cracks off. The issue we face now, since the COVID happened, was the material prices have just dramatically increased. Concrete's up at 188%, milling's up 230%, and asphalt costs are up 40%. So back in 2016, IMS said it would take $6.75 million to get up to a 72-point score on our PCI score and maintain that. The city funded this with street sales tax and with the 2018 GEO bond money. Currently, the PCI overall score is a 64. The 2023 IMS report says the city needs $8.5 million to maintain the 64 PSI score. To get us to a 72, it would require $15.8 million. And that was the 2023 cost to do that. So the lower score is due to 3 items, and staff's discussed this. And in the increased cost of material up 66%. Everybody across state is having the same problem. IMS improved their technology. Their technology gets better every time, so they detect more cracks, more things wrong with your street because their scanners are better. And then IMS, in their report, one thing we didn't like about it was they go in and they want you to go into the subdivision and pick out the 2 or 3 bad streets and just replace them. They don't want you to make other improvements. That's the way that theirs is designed. So we want to do it where we go in a subdivision, we do the whole subdivision while we're there. And we actually do it extra than they recommend. That's where we're going in and replacing the bad driveway approaches, the sidewalks, adding the ADA ramps, which ADA requires you to do that. So a lot of it, what we're doing is a requirement, but so we're spending some of our money on that, and that don't help your score any, but it improves the neighborhood while we're there. Staff talked about ways to fund the extra street funds that we need to continue with good streets, and that's the upcoming 2026 GEO bond, as you all are aware, growth in our street sales tax, and STP grants, now called STBG, which is Surface Transportation Block Grant, has increased. Charlie and his group let us know that those have increased from 3 million to 4 million a year, and we can use that funding on arterial streets. Not residential, but we can use it on arterial streets, which need a lot of work right now. Next slide, please. We have a total of 542 miles of streets, and residential and secondary makes up 83% of those. Arterials make up the remaining 17%. So, next slide, please. The 77% of our streets, I mentioned a while ago that we have asphalt and concrete, as you know. 77% of those streets are concrete, and 23% of those streets, I'm sorry, 77% are asphalt, 23% are concrete. Next slide, please. I want to throw this slide in. It's not anything that we're proposing. It's a carryover project, but I just wanted you to see what Charlie's team is working diligently to try to get out to construction. And Travis and Charlie and all, they're wanting to get them out to construction all in FY 2026. There's a total of 13 projects, and that's over $12 million worth of projects right there. That's going to make a huge difference in getting our score up. These projects are funded with both street sales tax and GO bond money. Next slide, please. The concrete panel repair project from 2018 bond, we proposed, these are the streets that we're proposing right now, and they're all funded with GO bond money, and it's Central Park Plaza. It has a PCI of 21. To me, in my opinion, this is the worst road in town. Not as bad as some Wagner County roads, but.
Yeah.
Carriage
I felt that.
Yeah. Carriage Crossing Phase 2, we've done one of the phases, but what we call ourselves is Phase 2, the remaining of it that we're gonna get. It has a PCI from 30 to 60 right now. And it's actually, we've got it already in design. We've had it in design for a little while, Charlie does. So then we're gonna do Canterbury and Mendon, and it has a PCI score of 46. So, next slide, please. This is a mill and overlay, and it's Shiloh at Battle Creek, and it's a mill and overlay. And then we'll also be crack sealing at 4 subdivisions. And those will be Kenwood Hills, Aspen Creek, Lancaster Park, and the Highland. When we finally receive our sealing machine, we're gonna do 4 subdivisions. We're gonna do Spring Creek, Nottingham Addition, Berwick South, and Southtown Estates, whenever we get that in the material one. Next slide, please. On the arterial mill and overlays, we have Houston, and that's Elm to Main Street. You can vision that. And Washington and Elm. We're gonna go on that. You've seen the rutting on both sides of Washington and Elm. If you're going westbound, the ruts are getting pretty deep. So we're gonna go in there and we're gonna mill that intersection back on both sides of Elm. And we're gonna repair that. And on Evans Road, that's the road that we took in from Wagner County from 101st to Highway 51. And that road eventually will probably need widened and some major work on it. We're gonna go in there and spend a minimal amount of fixing the soft spots and doing a quick overlay on it to smooth it up. We get a lot of phone calls about that. South Main Street, 81st to 91st. That'll be a big project right there. And I know we need to work with Tim Robbins, because I've heard this last week that he may need to do some water line repair in there, so we'll work with him on that. If that's the case, maybe they can jump in there and do the water line, and we'll do our paving, we'll back it up towards the end of the year. So Houston, we're gonna put a thin overlay on it, just west of FedEx building there, on down to 9th, tie in there. That is really rough right in there, and that'll improve that until that road will eventually get widened.
I should start sending emails in about that, because I travel that street a lot too.
Yeah, I do too. That's my route to work. County
Ward 4 is
line.
already pretty needy,
I
honestly.
mean.
Did you say Ward 4 is pretty deserving?
No, I say needy.
Yeah.
It's only because we've done so much in Ward 2 this year, so. I was needy last year.
Then on county line, I know Mr. Spurgeon mentioned this the other night, but we're gonna, from 81st to 101st, we're gonna mill the ends, and we're gonna put a thin lift on there to smooth that up, just like we did on Lynn Lane. We're gonna smooth that up until it can be widened. On Washington, east of county line, around to the curve to NSU, that's a project that's we're gonna do. That's gonna help out on the amphitheater. So, next slide is gonna be some miscellaneous items that we're gonna be doing. I don't know if you've noticed the contractors in town doing the striping of the intersection, but they've done about 4 or 5 now, haven't exact completed about that, but it's really looking nice. And they're doing 18 right now. We wanna continue that, and so we're putting the 400,000 in there to do 18 to 20, whatever we can get at that time. And we'll be in pretty good shape by then.
And this is the one that's gonna last longer than what we
Yes.
had been using in the
Yes.
past.
Yes.
It looks really good.
It's multi-polymer, and they call it MMA, and it'll last a lot longer. Yes, absolutely. Our annual this includes annual sidewalk maintenance of 75,000, alley improvements 200,000. As community development is approving these homes down in the Rose District and all, the builders call us to come in and improve the alley, because they're all alley access homes, so we get a lot of those calls. We got 2 of them today, so it's needing that. College Street, the city has a CDBG grant that don't cover all the costs to mill and overlay that road, and so we're gonna do that in-house with our crews, and so the 600,000 of that is for street sales tax to pay that road as well. Next slide, please. The total for the FY26 project is $327 for the residential street maintenance, arterial resurfacing projects, $2183, $2,183,000. I think Tara said some of these numbers are off a little bit.
The total's off a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The total's off, okay. The signal projects, if you notice, we didn't include any signal projects that we got. They're just gonna work out of their maintenance budget, because we had to have a match for the Safe Streets match for that grant, and it was almost $900,000, so we're gonna use that money to do that. And that's some of that includes signal upgrades and all that, so. So you saying the total of it is a little less than the 5?
5,454,000.
Okay, that's all I got.
Now, I heard on social media that we were painting streetlights brown. Is that included in this?
Don't believe everything you read
Yeah.
on social media.
Yeah. But we wanted to include a map. The next slide, please. The map shows the locations of all the street projects that's gonna be done in FY26. The blue is the mill and overlay of a subdivision. The green represents our proposed concrete panel repair project, and the red represents the concrete panel project. And the purple straight lines are the arterial asphalt projects that our crews will be mill and overlay them. So, if you, that concludes ours. If you have any questions, Zach would be happy to answer.
Yeah. Very nice.
Well, I just want to say too, I appreciate you all coming out and talking to the neighborhoods before you get started working in there. I mean, you may have always done that, I don't know, but I've attended several of those, and I know the neighbors really appreciate that. It at least answers some questions that they have, and
It makes it a lot easier on our team as well, knowing who to communicate with and setting those expectations before.
Well, and you made mention that about the PCI number, like, not, the fact that we focus on neighborhoods improves our quality of life. It may not improve the overall PCI throughout our city, but we have a main priority of also making sure we improve our quality of life, and our citizens want that, so.
We're improving the connectivity too.
Yeah.
Well, 83% of those are residential related.
Yeah.
And we're doing 26 neighborhoods and around $26 million over the next couple of years. And as a part of the bond package, I could easily say that we will recommend at least $30 million over 10 years to match our $5 million just to keep the 64.
Yeah.
So obviously, last time we did 20 million because we were able to do 2 million per year approximately, and we saved some of that up. So now that's why we're able to go in right now and actually do a lot of these neighborhoods. So when you think about Prop 1 and about transportation, I mean, now that we know that it's residential related, that number, we should talk about whether that number should be higher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to see how we compare to other cities, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I thought we compared fairly better.
The state average is 62 right now, and that's the folks that do reports, so.
Yeah.
that's what I was saying, probably the ones that don't are the ones that really need it.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll be doing we'll be hiring a new contractor, a third party to come in here and when, Zach, 28?
Yeah.
27?
Early 28.
We'll have a new one.
So the last section is the manual of fees, if there's no questions for Tim and Zach. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Nice job, guys. So I'm asked kind of Tom to go through the manual of fees and what's being proposed briefly. Obviously, these are coming back to the council probably July or late August, again, for confirmation, but just for everyone's edification, this is what's being considered. So.
Thanks for stealing my thunder. I was about to say that.
Okay.
These rates are effective October 1st, so this is preliminary. And what we've done is just highlighted predominantly where the changes are. The community development fees have an increase of 3%, and that is almost all community development fees, so that's permits, licenses, etc. And the primary reason for that is credit card fees. As we were going through our budget preparation this year, we noticed that there was a recurring theme, and that was a request for increase of additional credit card fees dollars. And so we looked at that and we discussed it and made the decision to move that up. But the community development, 85 to 90% of all their payments are made with a credit card. So that's why that increases there. And that's starts on page 3. Page 16 are our water rates, and there's a change on average of 4.9%. Stormwater fees are page 17, increases of average of 4.9%. Sanitary sewer rates on page 17 also, with an increase of 18.9%. Solid waste and recycling is on page 18, and it's a $2.50 per month increase. And then at Battle Creek Golf Course, they've asked for, the management company has asked for increases that are an average of 6%, and that is just to help cover costs and to stay in the market. And that's on page 21. And then regarding our utility rates specifically, based on the financial planning and cost service analysis that Black & Veatch has performed for us, which, as Mr. Spurgeon made reference to earlier, that will be coming back to the council at a later date. That study has the following recommendations. For water, the previously mentioned 4.9% for FY26, which would actually be effective October 1st. And then the preceding years, FY27 through 29, water is a 2% increase. And then for wastewater, current year 18.9, and then the subsequent periods of the model are 13%. Stormwater, 4.9 for the current fiscal year, and the subsequent years are 2%. And as I said, that full report is in your binder, and then will be brought back to the council and authority at a later date. And I would be happy to entertain any questions on those items.
I do want to ask this, just for the benefit of our citizens, because we hear it all the time. Obviously, there are some increases in most of our fees here. One, and I'm asking this because, again, is it absolutely necessary at this time? And two, what would happen if we didn't increase these fees?
I'm happy to answer that
Sure,
if you would
yeah.
like. So the rate model is based on information provided to Black and Veatch, and that information included departmental estimates of what their operating and capital, pay-as-you-go capital needs are for that model period. And then also inclusive is, before we mentioned Emily's 5 to 10 year plan for BAMA. And so those things are inclusive. And so to be able to fund those things and to make those improvements, they are necessary. So to forego an increase would simply mean to not carry out some of those objectives that we have. It's honestly, it's that black and white.
If you break it down, if council said we don't want these large of an increase, there's some things you could do. First thing we'd look at, obviously you have personnel costs and you have operating costs that need to remain in place. There is flexibility in the pay-as-you-go. There is flexibility in the debt service. So if council said they only wanted to do this to increase for these, then first thing we look is about what capital improvements would we not do. And secondly, there are several new employees that are being proposed in the budget, so those would be removed. And then basically, if there was still a shortfall, obviously we could go back in and make further cuts, or actually, because we have about $22 million potentially in our fund balance, you could use some portion of the fund balance to actually cover that cost for this year. With the challenge with that is, obviously, whatever you take, you're not going to be able to replace it, and then that becomes a part of what your revenue sources are. So then you'd have the challenge of needing to actually continue to use from reserves to make that up, or do further cuts, or actually do an increase. And so you could do certain things that we could defer, but that's the tough challenges here. We talked about this at length this morning about should the question come up, to be prepared. And obviously that's how we look at it first. If council said we only want them to be this, we would go capital improvements, pay as you go, and then the new personnel, and then look at further reductions with its existing operations. And I think it's an appropriate question to ask, obviously, because obviously when you look at our rates compared to other communities, we are right in line. We're lower in some areas, we're higher in others. Like I think we're higher in stormwater, but when you look at water and sewer, we're extremely competitive, if not lower. Now, to the residents, they're not focused on comparisons. They're looking on what it's costing them per month for the cost of service.
Well, the fact is that so I think maybe Tim mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that they don't see because underground, things we take for granted every day, that our toilets are gonna flush, our water's gonna come on, our waste is gonna be taken away, but those things do have to be maintained and upgraded. So the quality of life things depend on these rates and what we do and how we manage these things.
When, did you say, again, when that study, is a 5-year study, and we didn't do it, we skipped a couple of years or whatever, when are we gonna look at, revisit that again?
So the 5-year study is complete, and we will bring it before the governing body probably this summer before we actually adopt everything. We can do that. I think that's been the discussion, if we can squeeze that in. We've already looked at it. We've updated it a couple of times because it did slide. And to your question, kind of deferring it, if you remember in the COVID, we didn't increase. We're trying to catch up on some of that now because we didn't go for a couple of years because nobody knew how it was going to be.
So you've looked at what was proposed and,
Yes, sir.
and what they're recommending to.
Yes, sir. I would like to point out, if I may, we've always talked about percentages. You see an 18.9% on sanitary sewer. Don't get caught up on the percentage. Our sewer is so far behind everybody else. When we started taking a look at our utility rates, I believe our neighbors to the west were almost at $10 per 1,000 gallons, and we were at $3.83 per 1,000 gallons. So if you took 20% on 383, that was still less than $1 increase. That's what you're kind of seeing on the sewer. We were, and Councilor Parks, I think, or Vice Mayor, I think you said it many times, that we were offsetting a sewer with water. Well, now we're trying to get each utility where it's in better, healthy position to stand on its own. And that's why you're seeing higher percentages on the sanitary sewer. It's not huge, it's catching it up.
Really, that got us into a bad problem because we was using one utility.
Yes,
to
sir.
pay for everything.
Water.
Everything got behind, and then, you know what I mean, had to catch up.
Absolutely. Today, we are a lot healthier individually on our utilities. They're not quite there, but we're getting a lot closer. Okay.
So what I was thinking, to answer your question, Vice Mayor, was either at the meeting of July 15th or the first meeting in August to presenting that. And obviously, it's going to take at least an hour or so, so I looked about the availability of the governing body for a special meeting before that meeting to focus specifically on the Black and Beach study, to have it explained, because part of it, I mean, you read through it, it's a lot of data, and so obviously there's an executive summary, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time to go through what's been recommended and it's explained. And obviously Aaron's and his, the personal production team for the city will actually do a great job of promoting exactly why we need such a study.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're finished tonight then, is that correct?
Yes.
Any questions from the counselors? Anything to bring before the additional? You had any comment?
I just want to first, Vice Mayor and members of council, Cindy Arnold could not be here tonight. She's with her daughter and on the East Coast, and I know she's watching through Aaron. Aaron, she's texted me a couple of times. So I do want to acknowledge Cindy and to Tom. Obviously,
Everybody's waving at Cindy.
I want to introduce Tara. I mean, you may not know Tara. Basically, the three of those have been the folks that have done an amazing job of putting the budget together, $455 million. The amount of detail, I'm very grateful. Each director, obviously, they fight very hard for their department, trying to make sure they get the resources that they need to provide services. And I want to thank them, senior staff, and also the council members for your time going through everything. I know you've reviewed it now. You'll probably review it again before the public hearing. But overall, I just very thankful for everyone's efforts of putting this document together. I believe it's very transparent, very understandable for anyone that wanted to look at it, and we look forward to the public hearing on June 2nd to present it once again in a smaller version to make sure the public knows what's being proposed for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. All right, one more motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a roll call vote?
Pickle?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Ford? Parks?
Yes.
Wimpy?
Would you tell her that we went an hour longer because we missed?